Hey guys, Jack here. It's currently 2:30 a.m. In Chicago for 12 19 18, and here's the new upcoming balance changes for Hearthstone December 2018. So me and my friends were literally at a Denny's, and these came out. I was looking at Reddit, and these are some crazy changes. These honestly affect Wild, they affect Standard. And they said that we'd opted to make these expansions earlier. Honestly, I think this is really exciting. So just to go over them. So first one, they're hitting Druid, right? Wild Growth is going to go up to 3 mana from 2. This is pretty big because in Wild, this means that Jade Blossom is just a better Wild Growth. But Jade Blossom was played, is the thing, right? Increased Jade counter by 1, and it was in a meta where like you had UI, so you could Wild Growth, and then UI, and then Nourish for Crystal. So it was very good because you had multiple ways of ramping. I think Wild Growth will still see play, but Druid's power level overall will drop because this means you can no longer go like 2 into 4 into 5. You know what I mean? Like the whole spiel was extremely good. Or you couldn't go coin Wild Growth into Nourish. So this will definitely affect Druid, but I think Wild Growth is still a pretty good card overall, but your initial investment is much higher, which means aggro decks and other decks that need tempo or are faster combo decks can take priority, right? So look at your like APM Priest, which are a much faster combo deck. This just enables them to take over Druid faster because Druid needs time to actually ramp up now. They need one more turn. So this is the same thing with Nourish. Nourish goes up to 6 mana now. So 6 mana to gain 2 mana crystals, or you draw 3 cards. Once again, Nourish is a card that's been played in almost every Druid deck. It's versatile. Right now, it's being used for ramp, but occasionally it's also used for card draw because it's versatile. When UI rotates, it'll probably be used for ramp, right? So this is going to be the Nourish Nerf. And they give an explanation here that these are very powerful in the classic set, and I agree with this all because Druid honestly doesn't play any cards other than this. This helps open up strategies that if you're in a different Druid deck, maybe you'll be like, okay, Nourish isn't as powerful as it used to be, or Wild Growth isn't as powerful as it used to be. You don't have to run them every time now. Level Up going up to 6 mana from 5 mana. This kills Odd Paladin. I mean, kills Odd Paladin in the sense that like if you spam the odd minions on board, you don't get to just have this awesome finisher anymore. I honestly think Level Up is a perfectly decent card, like in a world where Odd Paladin doesn't exist, right? When you have to summon 1/1s the normal way. But Odd Paladin lets you summon the recruits way too quickly, right? And which makes Level Up too powerful. In Wild, I don't know if Level Up was used too much in other decks, but my assumption is if it was, this definitely hurts it, right? Because you're not just spamming stuff anymore. Anyway, this is a really great way to shape things up, so I really like this change. Chain Gang is going from, it's the same thing except instead of summoning a copy of the minion, it's to summon another Serenite. This pretty much nerfs Shutterwalk to make it so Shutterwalk can't like copy itself, which I'm happy about, and this is solely just a nerf to Shutterwalk. Finally, Leeching Poison. Yes, so I'm very happy with this change. I actually like this change. And I think it's good they made it 1 mana instead of 0 mana. I think if you looked at Leeching Poison in isolation, right, and you made it a 0 mana card, even with Rogue combo, I'd say like, oh, that's a fine card, right? Because it'd be fair, right? Give your weapon lifesteal this turn. But the problem is Gadget Sand exists, and it'd be really good as a cycle and potentially like Miracle Rogue or a combo deck, which would be very annoying. So making it 1 mana is very good, and 1 mana is very fair for this because, right, you only get lifesteal for this turn. This effectively will actually destroy, I think, you know, the Kingsbane Rogue. So anyways, as you can see, there's just the quick balance changes, right, what they do. How I think this will change the meta, though, however, is that and they give a good description that it's a persistent healing effect. These changes all seem very good for traditional control decks, right? Because this makes Druid slower to combo, this hurts Odd Paladin, this hurts Shutterwalk, this hurts Kingsbane. So Kingsbane being a control killer, Shutterwalk being a control killer, other Druid decks being a control killer, right? This all hurts them. This hurts those decks. However, here's the problem, right? You have to look at Warrior and think that, okay, Warrior is still a very polarizing matchup in the sense that you will still destroy the aggro decks because they simply run out of resources, and you then eventually out-resource them, out-tempo them by getting a huge tempo swing, and you beat them. The problem is there's still decks that exist that cuck Warrior, right? You're thinking about APM Priest, you're thinking about Mechathune decks, you're thinking about the Death Rattle decks. They all destroy Warrior, okay? And Warrior still can't beat against other greedy control decks. If you think about greedy priest decks destroy Warrior. They have been all throughout history. Control Warlock decks, they'll destroy Warrior once again because they have the Rin, the Disciple. So Warrior really still has no way to disrupt these decks, and in my opinion, that's what'll keep Warrior from being a tier 1 deck. Warrior could honestly go to top of tier 2, maybe even like no, I don't think it makes bottom tier 1. I think top of tier 2, right, in this rotation, because Warrior has the ability to destroy aggro super hard because of how good the Baku hero power is and how efficient the removal tools are. But the problem is that you have no late game as Warrior, and fundamentally it makes sense why, because you have the best like anti-aggro in the game, so it'd be absolutely absurd if you also had great late game. This means that Warrior is going to stay cucked, in my opinion. Who's the real winner of this matchup? Hunter. No Hunter cards were touched, which I'm actually very surprised about. I thought they would nerf Hunter Spellstone from 5 to 6 mana, given how, like, not necessarily if everything stayed the same, but if other things got nerfed, I would assume Spellstone would need a nerf for Hunter. So I'm actually quite surprised that Spellstone didn't get touched. I am also surprised that Hunter Rexar is being left in the same state that it is. This isn't to say that I think Rexar inherently is like OP, but like when Rexar released, right, the meta was fast enough that you couldn't really play Rexar without being punished. It was a bit more memey, but you still crushed Warrior. Rexar just sticks down Warrior right now, right? If you play it on turn 6, you tempoed out, you just destroy Warrior. I honestly think Rexar should go up to 7 mana. Just one turn later really helps against like Warrior matchup. Not even really helps. That's not the big difference, but it helps against aggro, right? That like it makes Rexar just a bit slower before it can get the the shooting all the arrows and getting the 5 mana. And controversial change is that you make the hero power more expensive. I don't know how much more expensive it would have to be, but slow enough that like you can't build a threat and play a huge 8 mana threat at the same turn, right? I don't like how with Rexar you cost 2 mana and you can place down the 8 mana threat at the same time. Yes, it's slow against aggro, but against other mid-range or anything tempo, it's still really disgusting. But not the biggest complaints, right? I'm excited for these changes. I think that Druid, while it's nerfed, there's still archetypes that will exist. I think the Taunt Druid certainly like will adapt. I think the Mechathune, the Car, all these Druid decks will adapt to become better, especially like Token Druid, right? I don't even know how much this affects the token list, but if a more aggressive token list comes out, the aggressive token list didn't need these cards. So, Druid still has a lot of powerful tools. They have the Savage Roar, they have the Swipe, they have branching paths right now, which is very good. In Wild, however, this will also affect Druid. And again, this is a really good change because this changes the core set and the classic set. So anything that does that, I'm always happy about seeing changes to the OG set because those are around forever, right? So seeing changes to those is very good. Level up, I think this will cuck Odd Paladin. I think Odd Paladin has to build a more aggressive strategy now because previously Odd Paladin, I feel like as long as you're not against Druid who builds a wall of taunts, you press your hero button and force them to remove it under the threat that you play a level up or something that buffs your minions. Now level up is no longer a threat, which means you have less minion buffs. So this makes Odd Paladin's threat of just putting down Silverhand recruits much less, at least in standard. I don't know about Wild. Wild, completely different beast, but I think in standard at least, this is a very important change. Chain Gang, this effectively kills the OTK Shutterwalk, I believe, because I don't think there's another way to like double it. So I think OTK Shutterwalk is just gone now. I don't know if it kills Tempo Shutterwalk, but I'm assuming Tempo Shutterwalk's not a strong enough deck. This Leeching Poison change will absolutely kill the Kingsbane like fatigue strategy, I think. That's not to say Kingsbane still can't like kill control decks, right? You know what I mean? Like that's not to say the 15 damage per turn, because once you get Kingsbane strong enough, you're still going to deal 15 damage per turn, right? So you can still beat control decks, but you will lose so much more percentage on other decks, and certain control decks will have a way to beat you because without Leeching Poison every turn, they can't clear your minions anymore. So if you're a control deck that runs minions, you will now beat the Kingsbane rogue. So as long as you have your big minions like Baku and stuff, and you have some stuff in Warrior can actually win this matchup now because you only get your Leeching Poison like twice per game pretty much. So this really hurts it against both control matchups and aggro matchup, which is what I believe the control strategy for Kingsbane will be dead. A more aggressive strategy maybe will exist. Like the Pirate one they have now is a kind of like mid-range to late game strategy, but if they can find an earlier game one, maybe it'll work. Okay, so that's how I think it'll affect the meta like right away. Lastly, I want to go over like I think that after rotation, however, Druid actually is going to need some strong cards because now that Druid core set is nerfed, right, and they lose Ultimate Infestation, now their ramp is nerfed and their card draw is nerfed, right? Because once UI goes away, that means Nourish goes back to being used for either card draw or you use a Gadgets and Engine. So Druid will actually need some pretty good cards during the next rotation, I think, which is finally like acceptable to give Druid good cards. But Druid still has like some good cards, right? So it'll be interesting to see what they actually print for Druid power level wise. Paladin, what can I say? I mean, OTK Paladin's still a thing, right? They still have the DK OTK, they still have Shirelia. I'd like to see a viable control strategy, but I think after rotation, I mean, this doesn't affect Paladin after rotation, right? Because after rotation, they were gonna lose this anyways, so not much of a big deal because they kind of lose it now. Seer Knight after rotation, again, naturally after rotation, Shudderwalk would have gone away because Seer Knight would be gone, but this is really helpful for Wild, right? Same with this change. This helps Wild because if there was an odd Paladin Wild, it would have been running this. I don't know if it does, but just saying, like, it would have helped Wild out. Once again for Leeching Poison. Now the problem with these nerfs is that Hunter is not addressed. APM Priest, while being bad, will still be run in tournaments now that other combo decks don't exist as much anymore. But now that Druid is a bit slower, and Shudderwalk doesn't work as well, and Leeching Poison's kind of cucked, I'm curious to see how aggro will develop, because if aggro can develop well, that will really help clear out more control decks on ladder, which means Warrior can do better. Of course, the problem with that is then you run into Hunter, right? So I think this might end up either propelling the Death Rattle Hunter and Spell Hunter into tier 1 top, with Malygos Druid being pushed to like either bottom tier 1 or tier 2 / all the other Druid decks. Control Warlock / Q Block. Q Block right now is probably like a tier 2 deck. Win rate, it's not super high, but like some of the power level I've witnessed on ladder is like it can beat a lot of decks, right? It has a lot of versatility, and it's less polarizing, I feel like. So Q Block might actually end up being pushed up maybe into borderline like tier 1 area. Same thing with Control. Zoolock, not affected by these at all. There's even Shaman as well. Odd Mage, this helps out because their late game strategy is a bit better now. And then Control Warrior, I already talked about what I think about that. So yeah, this will definitely shift some stuff around. I'm worried that Hunter might become too powerful, but you know, people are innovative. I think they'll find a solution that like can work against it. And if not, Blizzard can always hotfix things, because the thing I like is that they were very proactive with these changes. So I do believe in Blizzard's prowess to actually be proactive in hotfixing things. So this is a very good change I like for the future. I'm very happy about these. And yeah, this is just my thoughts about this at 2:46 a.m. in the morning. Anyways, this is going to be Jack, signing out.